What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 8 of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Chris, and Shad. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, man? Yeah, we're getting up there.
Moving.
Doing numbers.
Episode 8, week 8 of the NFL. I mean, it's week 8 of the NFL season. Season's going by pretty fast. We're already at the trade deadline. We've seen one big trade already go down with Kevin Byard going to the Eagles, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But what you guys think? How was the week for y'all?
NFL wise, I mean, it was pretty. Hey, I loved it. It's one of those things where, when you get nervous because I like having the earlier games. You get nervous though, and then like once you win, it's like all right, you start cleaning this shit, you start feeling good. I took the dogs on a walk after. Like I was like, yeah,
set the tone for the week.
That's facts, cause waiting to a night game.
Yeah, I know that shit.
A night game, just be like, man, when this time gonna come? Just keep looking down. Don't even know what to do. You watching everybody else go through the motion. It's like, man, my game at night.
One perk shot of having no primetime games.
Yeah, one perk.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you do, like you mentioned with the night games, you do have the night games, and then you start watching the other teams in your division. You like, damn, they got the dub.
Yep.
Damn, we in a tight race. Yeah, what are we gonna do tonight? But
that's facts.
With that being said, as you guys mentioned, it was a big week, really for all of our teams, our favorite personal teams. The Eagles obviously played Miami on Sunday Night Football. The Colts really might quite possibly be the game of the year so far with all the lead changes against the Browns, and then how the game ultimately ended. And then the Falcons, we talked about them a little bit last week in terms of this will be a big week for first in division. Yep. You guys got the added benefit, as something that I mentioned earlier, is you guys got to watch your division rival take a loss on Thursday night. The hated rival Saints take a loss on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Before your games, and then ultimately we also had a big upset on Monday Night Football with Brock Purdy and the 49ers going down for the second straight week. As well as a big game for Lamar. But we can go ahead and start there with Lamar Jackson, the current MVP favorite. I don't know about all that, but he might not be the MVP favorite, but with the betting lines. But Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens versus the Detroit Lions, man. What we anticipated that being one of the biggest games of the week, obviously in conjunction with the Eagles and the Miami Dolphins. And it got ugly quick. It was 28-0 before they could even blink.
They took the game on TV. It's bad when they take the game on TV.
Man, what?
I was looking, and I turned. I was like, "What the fuck? Why are they showing two Falcons games?" I was like, "They took this game on TV."
And I want to say they said we welcome y'all from that game like mid third quarter, something. Yeah, it was of the Ravens game.
Not only is it crazy when they take the game off, but it's even crazier when it's the Detroit Lions, who going into the game, a lot of people were saying this is the best team in the league. They also, some people were even saying they had, one of the best resumes in terms of their only loss was in overtime to the Seattle Seahawks. And obviously they beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the first game of the season. So you don't typically see a game with that kind of magnitude where it's, a heavy favorite or a heavy hitter with the Ravens in the AFC versus the NFC team when we saw it. I mean, Lamar Jackson put on a show. Yeah, like I said, 28-0 before they could even think of anything. And I mean, Lamar Jackson, he looked comfortable in the pocket. He was making every throw you could possibly want for him to make. Every throw that all the detractors and critics say that he can't make. He was running the ball when he needed to, and ultimately Detroit didn't have a single answer for him.
He threw 357, 3 touchdowns, ran for like like he did whatever he wanted to do. But I will say I don't put too much stock into this game on the Detroit side. I gave a lot of credit to the Ravens, credit to the Ravens, but like Detroit, I just think they weren't ready for this shit. I don't think they're a bad team now. All of a sudden, I still think they're they're good, top of the NFC, still top 5 team in the NFC, of course. But yeah, that was a bad look though. You don't want to go out like that.
I mean, it was like during the game, it's like every time Ravens score, it was just Well, for me in general, I was like, man, okay, Lions, they're gonna make a
They're gonna do
little
something.
move. They're gonna do something. Then bam, don't do nothing. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, nah, Detroit built different. We thinking, we done seen it. We done seen them play with the best of them. I mean, and even when they down, even like you said, with the one loss that they did have, it went into overtime. They
Yeah.
played a hell of a game. They just lost that game. But I mean, every game they were, I would say, even with the loss, every game that they play up until now, they were the tougher team. They were the team that brought it to the other team, and it was
More
just
physical
like
Yeah.
team. Yep.
like
That's for
Cass
sure.
said, they just weren't ready. They got railroad. It was bad.
Quick 21-0 in the first quarter. Yeah. I mean, but also this was a good game for them as well to have it right now, and we'll get to it later. But I think this game really showed them what they could use help with right before the deadline. They want to go for it because they have the squad right now. If you want to take your shot, take your shot.
I mean, because
Yeah.
realistically,
Great.
this is Dan Campbell's second year. Like
Mhm.
for him to make
This
this big,
is his
it's not his second year.
third. I think it's his third year as a
Okay,
coach.
but
Yeah.
I mean, he's still relatively, made a turnaround with the team, so it's
Yep.
not in a position like, oh my god, we thought y'all was gonna be this good, and then y'all turn out not. Now it's a fire sale. It's like, no, I mean, y'all really outperforming what most people might have assumed that y'all would have been. Like 5-1 before this game. I don't think
And
nobody
yeah,
really just saw
And
that.
kind of that is one thing that I'm glad that you did mention, because to kind of go in conjunction with what Cass said, is that now they are in year 3 of kind of their quote unquote program. And it started off with bringing in Jared Goff and getting rid of Matt Stafford and kind of fixing the salary cap from there. And now Jared Goff, at this point, his contract is starting to look more, it was from them years ago. It was, oh, Jared
yeah,
Goff and Carson Wentz have the two worst
The bad
contracts.
contract.
The two worst contracts in the league. Obviously, Carson Wentz is not on a team right now, but Jared Goff, ultimately he's played his way back to kind of, I don't want to say that, reinvigorating his career, but, people were kind of leaving him for dead. When he went to the Detroit Lions, people were saying that they were going to draft his replacement very soon. They were going to be a bad team. Ultimately they did end up drafting Hendon Hooker earlier this year, but, it don't look like
still
Hendon Hooker's ever,
That's
anywhere
he's
near
our,
ready.
funny.
Yeah,
I was literally about to say shout out Jared Goff, because literally the trade was like, okay, this is just a placeholder. This is
yeah. I
literally
mean,
a placeholder for
he's
right
still
now.
young too. That's the crazy part about when all this is coming out a couple years ago. Like he's still at the time he was 26.
yeah.
He's still young. Like it's like he has a long time in this league left to write him off so quickly, and he still made it to a Super Bowl. Like he's
Thank
still that.
you.
a,
Like
You know
he
what I
a
took
mean?
a team to a
former
Super Bowl.
number
Like,
one overall pick. He went
yeah.
to the Super Bowl. En route to the Super Bowl, he outplayed Drew Brees, even though we all know with that crazy pass interference non-call that happened and everything. But he did really get disrespected a lot.
I mean,
Even though
he theoretically outplayed Brady. He just went up against Bill Belichick, who's arguably the best defensive mind ever.
It's okay.
and if you don't want to say, yeah, we don't necessarily have to say outplayed, but he definitely played him to like
Okay, he
a
played.
match.
Yeah, right,
It
right.
was
Yeah,
a
He
play
matched
match.
Brady. Let's
respectfully
say that
for
he
sure.
matched Brady.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
uh but to follow up on my thought is, now that we're in year 3, we see how the team is built. We've got Jared Goff on more of a middle of the pack quarterback contract, as opposed to having the highest paid quarterback contract. It is now that time to, hey, we've got a shot. The Packers are not looking like the Packers of old with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. The Vikings, you know we'll talk a little bit about them, and obviously they're kind of uh, keeping up with everybody else, and now after their rough start,
Mhm.
and then the Bears are, we're not gonna have to take them seriously, not right now at the very least. No disrespect to the Chicago and the Bears, but we'll get into it a little bit later, but it might be time for them to start looking like, hey, we've got to make some noise, make some shake.
Yeah.
Especially because Jameson Williams hasn't necessarily been that, the typical guy that we've seen as a first round pick to come in and make an immediate impact, a la Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle,
True.
from some of those guys that were in Alabama and those SEC schools.
And the news about Marvin. Jones Jr. stepping
Yeah.
away, so that's a whole other receiver. Like, he wasn't having a great year, but definitely a whole other receiver spot.
Yep.
Definitely something to look at coming up on next Tuesday.
Definitely something to look at. Definitely something to look at. But one of the receivers that might be on the trade block plays for the Tennessee Titans. And looks like the Tennessee Titans love to have this connection with the Eagles.
Just cap,
and we
man.
can start, the Eagles got a huge win on Sunday and then got an even bigger win Monday
Crazy.
afternoon with, getting arguably the best free safety over the past, you know, 3-4
3-4 years.
years
Yep.
in former All-Pro Kevin Byard. But, we'll talk a little bit about that after. But to get to the game, Philadelphia Eagles, y'all, they dominated. They dominated, two in the Miami Dolphins in the kind of revenge Jalen Hurts game where he kind of got his revenge on Tua for
Right.
Tua, overtaking him in college, and we know their kind of storied history. But man, we kind of all talked about it, and I know we all picked the Eagles to win.
Yeah.
But one of the things we talked about is Miami hasn't necessarily looked great against actual quote unquote competition, and that rang true again. They couldn't get anything moving basically throughout their whole entire first half up until that touchdown right before the half to Tyreek Hill, which was a dot. By the way,
It
great
was a
pass by
dot.
Tua,
It was a dot.
nasty. But man, AJ Brown has
Dog.
entered the chat. We've been talking about
Yes,
Jamar Chase and
sir.
been talking
And
about Justin
JJ and
Jefferson and
Reed.
Devontae Adams, and now we've got AJ Brown, who's consistently been making plays. He's been a part of a number one team in the AFC with the Tennessee Titans, and he was the lead dog there last year. Obviously, we all know how the Eagles were, with his coming over to the team.
How they instantly changed.
How they instantly changed. He obviously performed in the Super Bowl as well. And I mean, AJ Brown, he's inserting his name into, top 3, maybe top 1 receiver in the league right now. What was y'all's thoughts of the game?
I think, yeah.
We'll let you get last. We'll let you get last.
Round it off. But no, it was a great game to see. Like, AJ Brown, he's such just a strong route runner, strong person. It's hard. It's nothing you can really do with him, and that's what we've seen over the past 5 weeks. He's got 125 plus in each game, receiving yards. He's just dominating. But with this game, like, I still feel like Miami had like a slim chance. It's just that they made a timely mistake on that pick that big play Slay got. I mean, they were only down 7. You know what I mean? But after that shit was over with. Like, after that, they drove it down. Philly pretty much controlled the rest of the game through the run game, timely passes. So I mean, Miami had a chance. Tush push, of course, but Miami had a slim chance earlier in that third, like in the third quarter. But yeah, it got away from them. But we saw that. I mean, Miami hasn't beat a good team. They got dominated by 2 good teams that they played, and like, going forward, how much stock can you really put in Miami? It's like, all right, now you look, it's cute what you do. I mean, you can put 70 up on trash Broncos, but I mean, that shit was weeks ago at this point. You still got a hard games coming for Miami, especially not this week, but next week.
Chiefs coming up, Buffalo again.
So
still
it's a lot of questions in Miami after this one for sure.
But they did get Jalen Ramsey back in practice, so hopefully that's a little bit of a boost for them. But Chris, let's hear it. Speak up on your squad.
Man, look, this was a hell of a win for us. It was a good way. It was a good testimony just to our team in general to be able to bounce back after just a pathetic performance in the week before. I mean, that was just a bad loss. I mean, we was basically winning the game the whole game, but so many turnovers. We still, had another turnover. But the one thing I did like was the fact that we threw a pick six and Jalen Hurts went back at it. He didn't freeze in the moment. It kind of reminded me somewhat like, the Super Bowl. He fumbled. Took it back for a touchdown. He came right back, said, "You know what? All right, we're gonna go right back at it." He's not phased. He has been making more mistakes this year, which still is an issue. But it's just the makeup of the team allows us to overcome most of those issues. And it was a hell of a game by our defense. That front we just sending
The
waves
front
at people,
seven.
and
Front
it's
seven,
not.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of the people, a lot of our team like that's making the big splash page. You know, people don't talk about him. You know, Josh Sweat, he leads the league. He leads the team in sacks. You know, Hassan Reddy, even though he haven't been getting much sacks, he set the tone
Dominated
at the
the
beginning of
first
the game
half.
with facts. Set the tone. I'm talking about
Tackle,
2 tackles for loss
tackles for
off rip.
loss.
Like
Yeah.
you're not running
Yep.
the ball. You just gonna have to throw it. And
Yep.
I mean, we did as best we could on Tyreek Hill because I mean, that man's something serious. That
He
like you
is.
said earlier with the pass,
Dot.
that was
Yeah.
just
Oh man.
picture
And
perfect. Just didn't do
that's
nothing about it.
nobody else there. You know, there's probably nobody else in the league that you could throw that type of pass with that type of timing and that type of anticipation, and
Yeah.
then Tariq just running, splitting the defenders, running right under it. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, that's football at its peak right there.
Yeah.
Facts.
But with that being said, like we mentioned, the Eagles got the big win on Sunday and then came right back and once again fleeced, it seems, the Tennessee
Bolstered
Titans.
bolstered that
You know,
secondary, which we
definitely
talked
And
about
bolstered
all
it.
season. Yeah.
needed
Yeah.
it bad. I mean, coming into the year, between safety and linebacker, weakest position on the team, or most
Mhm.
I say most unknown position on the team. Both of those, safety and linebacker. And I mean,
Mhm.
throughout the first 8 weeks, I mean, we didn't have so many injuries, even to the stars that we did have. The people we brought in, trying to see if they're going to do something for us, and it's still, that was the weakest point of our defense. But getting somebody like Kevin Byard, I mean,
Ball
that's
hawk.
just going to change the philosophy of how we play. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's gonna help, Slay and
He gonna go get it. If it's any type of miss throw, he's definitely gonna go get it. And on top of that, on top of his on-field play, he's obviously a leader for the Tennessee Titans. You kind of saw a lot of his teammates, after he was traded. You kind of saw their reaction, similar to AJ Brown, honestly, where a lot of them were dissatisfied. He's obviously been a kind of a staple for their team outside of Derrick Henry, and you can say AJ Brown and Tannehill. And we've talked a little bit about it, but we're kind of seeing that Tennessee is kind of ushering that phase of their team out. Will Levis is looking to get the start this upcoming week. So, I mean, it's going to be a big time tank job. I won't say tank because, it's hard in the NFL to tank. We all say all these teams are going to tank. They're so bad, as we're seeing with the Cardinals. It's kind of hard to officially do that. But with that being said, man, the Eagles, why is it always Howie, man? Why is it always Howie? How does he always get these goddamn trades? Like, where everybody else at? Don't nobody else need a safety? Nobody else?
That
Not to
shit is
hate
crazy.
on the Eagles, but guy, it's always Philly. But that's a testament to their front office and how they run things.
Facts.
Like we said, big win for the Eagles. And one more thing that I do want to kind of expand upon that you mentioned, Chris, is that front seven, that D line that hits you in waves. And it's the Eagles aren't getting the same sack production that they got last year. But it's still kind of that similar like ilk where it's, last year it wasn't just Hassan Reddick. It was Hassan Reddick one game, then it was Hargrave the next game, then it's Brandon Graham. And I mean, we're starting to see the same thing. Jordan Davis has made his flashes here and there. Really, if you'd want to say anybody that probably hasn't necessarily had that game yet, it might be Fletcher or
right.
Brandon Graham, and that's eventually going to come just because of how they are or who they've been throughout their career.
Yeah.
But it was a Hassan Reddick game, and then as you mentioned, Josh Sweat has literally been consistent from the get go. I mean, it's a scary sight. I said that the Eagles were going to take a small step back. And I still think, they do miss Shane Steichen to an extent in terms of maybe their creativity on the
Right.
passing side of the field. But man, it's when you've got like 7 first rounders on that D line, what can you do?
Facts.
Eventually, like
I seen
it's
and it's not even just our D line. I just saw Pro Football Focus come out with just their rankings, and our left tackle is ranked number 1, our left guard ranked number 1, our center ranked number 4, and our right tackle ranked number 2. It's
Yeah.
like both D
Shit's
line and
legit,
O line.
man.
That's what we preaching.
Any
building through the
worries?
trenches.
Any worries about Jalen Hurts? I know, like, of course, there was some injury
As
questions after
far
the
as the
game.
injury goes,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think we need to get to this bye week. I'm gonna say that. I think we really need to get to this bye week the rest of the because it was one play. I don't know if y'all remember seeing it, but if he scrambled to the right, I mean to the left, he got the
He
first
looks so
down, but you could
slow.
literally
yeah,
tell he
yeah. He
slowed
was like,
up
"Yep,
and it
that's
looked like it was something wrong. And I
yep."
immediately said something wrong with him. He that run in particular, like, and throughout the season, it's been seeming like he'll take off and not go full speed,
He'll
and
pull
he'll
up.
get
Yeah, he'll
down like
kind of,
okay,
yeah, yep.
whatever. And then
And
later in the game, you'll see him take off up the middle, no problem. So I mean, I think it does bother him a little bit. We just need to get to the bye week. I
Yeah,
think he really needs a legitimate week off. But with the schedule coming, you can't just you
so
you
tough.
gotta go forward.
You gotta
You
tough
just
that
gotta
shit
get it.
out. Yeah,
honestly, that's what I was gonna. That's kind of the part where I feel like they miss Shane Steichen a lot, like in terms of that, or where he could help. His creativity in the passing game, his passing, like the way they get his receivers open, the way he attacks defenses. That's something that I feel like it would help Jalen a little bit more because it does seem like he's kind of making a conscious effort, maybe not to take as many hits. Obviously, he's taking a
Hmm.
lot when he
mhm.
does the tush push or brotherly shove, and obviously on top of that, he also runs. But it does seem, and I don't have it tracked out to how many runs he did versus last year, but it also just seems that they don't have as many design runs. They ran a lot of design runs, especially out of the empty formation last year. It doesn't seem like they've done a whole lot or as much as last year. I know that they do it a lot on the goal line, and that hasn't been great. But
And I was just about
that's
to say that's where I think we miss Shane the most because like literally this past game. We get to first and goal and we run three times and then on the third time it wasn't like a 5 yard away. We was still look a good 9-10 yards and we ran a quarterback
yeah,
draw.
quarterback
And
draw.
it's just like
Yeah.
the play calling, it just is good half a second, then it's not good, and it's almost like, is it good because we have good players and it's still just bad play calling, or is he learning and he's still making mistakes?
That's a good question.
That's the one caveat to the whole situation. Like we
Yeah,
still get stagnant a lot.
and that'll be something to watch moving forward. They obviously they've got the Cowboys coming up soon, and some other tough. I mean, the Eagles got a tough schedule kind of moving forward, so
Yeah.
that'll be something to pay attention to. But with that being said, we can transition into their former offensive coordinator with Shane Steichen and the Indianapolis Colts versus the Cleveland Browns. Obviously the Colts are my team, but quite possibly could have been the game of the year, like I mentioned earlier. I think it was the most lead changes that the NFL has had in the past like 10, 15 years, maybe even more, with like 8 lead changes. Man, what a tough loss. And we'll get into that a little bit in terms of, refereeing and where you guys feel. Also, uh,
Yeah.
Jim Irsay came out and said that kind of like the
Make everything
NBA.
reviewable in the
Yeah,
last
like the
2 minutes.
NBA with the 2-minute report, like make everything reviewable,
Hmm.
and have instant replay for those calls. But to get into a little bit of the game, great, fantastic game back and forth. Where Deshaun Watson was clearly we don't know what's going on with that man, but he didn't play well, for the first couple series that he was in, and then he immediately got a pretty big hit and was kind of held off to the side, and it was a little bit questionable. Like they said that he passed concussion protocol and he didn't hurt his shoulder. So like everybody was just kind of like, why is he just sitting on the sidelines? Is he
Right.
getting benched? Like, what is it? So ultimately, what did you guys think about the game? And then also, what do you guys think about the Deshaun Watson situation?
Uh, Crazy game, and like we talked about it. Literally after the game happened. This just reminded me of the game when last year against the Cowboys. I mean, high scoring
Yeah,
game, Gardner Minshew
Gardner
putting up
Minshew game.
numbers. I mean, that's one of them games where it's like, okay, Gardner can win you a game, but then you still have mistakes that happen in the game. It's like, man, come on, Gardner, come on,
Yeah.
you ain't have to do
Mm.
it like that. You ain't
Mhm.
have to, if you just take care of the ball, we good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I mean, it was like you said, lead changes, hell of a game. Miles Garrett,
Miles Garrett
That
dominated,
man
man.
is
He's a monster,
something
man. He's a monster.
serious.
And we're gonna get into that, like the defensive player of the year discussion too, as far as him and TJ. But I like what I've seen from Cleveland being able to tough this out throughout it all. And we've seen that the last couple of weeks with them having PJ Walker at quarterback. They have no worries starting him, bringing him in. The Deshaun Watson thing is weird. It's bizarre. Like you said, he passed concussion protocol, but did not come back in. Like we've seen this multiple times this year with quarterbacks, especially like what comes out to me was Josh Allen in that Giants game, got slammed on his head, went to the tent, got past the test real quick, came right back in, like right back in. That's what you expect to see from your franchise quarterback. But no, like they held him out, and then we saw the news today that he's out for the game on Sunday, and PJ Walker starting again. So it's like I don't know what's going on with that, and they saying that he has an injury that
it's like a rotator cuff
injury that in like baseball it could put you out for like 6 weeks or something like that. So if that's the case,
it kind of remind me a little. It kind of remind me a little bit of Kawhi in the sense of they originally the team doctor said he was fine.
Mm-hmm.
When the game he missed, the team doctor said he was fine to come back. He can play. He said no. And then you get slammed in your head, but maybe you felt your shoulder a little bit, and you was like, "No, I'm not playing."
Yeah, maybe something like that. The worst
it
part about all
give
this,
me a little hint of that, I should say.
Yeah, the worst part about all this is that the Browns are freaking 4-2. Like they have it, they're there. You know what I mean? That they have a chance to really truly win this division. Yeah, and they got this bullshit going on at quarterback. Like everywhere else on the team is straight, and you got this problem that's not supposed to be your problem. It's supposed to be your stable point. Especially when you're paying him
you know what that would do for his career if he would just tough. I ain't gonna say he doing it. He could be really hurt, but I'm just saying like you don't have Nick Chubb to lean on. This is like you putting him on your back.
You need he needs to make a statement.
Look for it.
Seriously. It's sad to see, honestly.
Like, you coming back, you finally who you used to be in Houston. You putting the team on your back. You don't have the dominant running game you're supposed to have. Defense playing lights out.
This is what everybody wanted for Deshaun, to have a team around him that's like this. And for him not to be showing up or him to be hurt or whatever it is, it's just really disappointing because this Cleveland team is damn good. And we talked about this before the season too. Like this division is freaking tough. And we see it playing out just that way. Like it's gonna be staying alive. Gonna be Dolphins. Steelers are 4. Like Steelers are 4-2. Like Cleveland, Cincinnati's coming back. They had a bye week, but they seem to be getting on the right track. It's gonna be a tough division, of course, with Baltimore. So yeah,
and with that, we'll talk a little bit about it later. But Bengals got a big game, we thought, with the 49ers coming up, and now with the Brock Purdy news, kind of hurt. But one of the things that obviously the Colts played really well. Browns played really well. It was kind of what we didn't expect. Ultimately it ended up being 2 backup quarterbacks, and all the talk about how Cleveland had this historically great defense, and then Gardner and the Colts just went in and did whatever they want.
Yeah, that was
Pittman got off on a big run. Josh Downs went and had another breakout game, and he continues to break out and be one of the better rookie receivers. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Taylor, he had a breakout game. Damn near all their players had 100 yards. So one of the things that I did want to revisit from last episode before we get into talking about the referees a little bit, but I want to go back to the conversation that we had about Micah Parsons and about how he was talking about the media and the like how the Cowboys are viewed differently, XYZ. Mm-hmm. This was like the perfect example of it, in my opinion, because Myles Garrett had 2 sacks. He forced 2 fumbles that immediately led to a touchdown because it was a fumble in the end zone. He also blocked a kick. He absolutely dominated. The game was solely won by Myles Garrett. If Myles Garrett didn't play that game, the Colts would have blew the Browns out, and we wouldn't even be talking about this. And if you go and look on all of the, your national shows such as First Take and Undisputed and First Things First, ESPN, FS1, nothing. No mention of it. Obviously, it's the it's the Cleveland Browns and the Indianapolis Colts, 2 backup quarterbacks. So it's maybe not talked about enough. But that's exactly where it's like, Micah, you gotta chill out, because if it was Michael Parsons that did that type of game, 2 sacks,
you would have won defensive player of the year already.
My God,
it would have been wrapped up over the news, man.
Wrapped up. That's
not to disrespect Micah or say he's not as good or compare them in any way, but obviously this is a comparison, but this is like, that's exactly what it is, like, where the Cowboys, like, you have to take what comes with being a Cowboy, like, because if, like I said, if this was you, you'd be Lawrence. They had been like, Lawrence Taylor is looking at you like, you're not compared to Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor is compared to you. So but with that being said, obviously, we all know now that we're a couple days away, the
controversy,
and this kind of rang true throughout a couple games on Sunday. But no game did it affect, I guess, more than the Indianapolis Colts game, because obviously the Browns were going down on a game-winning drive, and the game ended basically with the Colts getting a sack fumble that ended up that the Colts ended up recovering, that we thought would have ended the game. Little ticky-tacky illegal contact foul, if you want to call it. Okay, cool. But the second penalty was the one that was even worse, which was the pass interference call on that got the Browns down to the 1 yard line. The ball was the dude. The first in the stands caught it. Like, the ball was uncatchable.
It was
about 10 yards past the end of the end zone.
The ball was uncatchable. But bias aside from me, how do you guys feel exactly about refs including themselves, quote unquote, too much, whether that be in game, throughout the entirety of the game, or at the end of the game at that point in time?
I feel like,
go ahead.
For me, it's consistency. If you were calling that tightly of a game in the beginning, then I can't really be like, oh, it's 2 minutes, let them play, back off. But if you hand fighting all game, you letting it go, you see them, trying to jock for position, but it's no egregious call, then why call it at the end of the game? It is what it is. I kind of wish they would bring back, the challenge of at least the pass interference, because that it's not just this game. It's been other games this year.
Super Bowl.
Like,
the Super Bowl. We saw it just
because that's a big argument. People are like, oh, it is. But it's like, but they haven't been called. They haven't called it all game. That was really ticky tack. But I ain't want to bring that up being a homer. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like we should bring it back. I feel like we should bring it back up. It's valid, and their reasoning, I guess, it makes the game long. So what? Get it right.
Get it right.
You hate to have the refs have that kind of power over the game that they're not supposed to have. And like you said, we see it a lot. We see it every week. We saw it last week in that Buffalo New York Giants game. At the end, last play of that game
should have been probably called.
It was kind of flip side of what happened in that Colts game, but it's like, this shit should be reviewable. Like, this shit, the fact that they're messing up this much and how consistent that is, I think it's gonna be. It's gonna end up changing.
And you can say that the quote unquote them messing up is subjective, because technically it is the right call, if you want to say it that. But in my opinion, I feel like not only the consistency throughout the game, which is something that I agree with you, Chris, but also it's the end of the game. You should never want the game to come down to that. Like, you should never want the game to come down to unless it's like egregious and obvious. I'm more so talking about like the ticky tack. Like, it's a question. Like, it may have been pass interference, or like it may have been illegal contact, but they're really like, is it like, it's not something that you would. It's something that you wouldn't call most of the time, or some of the time. So like, if it's under 2 minutes, I feel like there should be like the rest should have an understanding. Like, look, listen, this isn't, we shouldn't, there's no reason that this game should end or be changed completely by a play call.
Yeah.
Unless it's egregious. And that's, unless it's like the Saints and Rams, which we talked about a little earlier, where, he literally he ran, that call that. call that, of course. But if it's like,
Yeah.
oh, he gave a little tug, like, come on, like
Yeah.
it's especially. And I don't want to bring up bad memories, but especially going back to the Super Bowl, it's like, man, listen, like in these type of games, these are legacy defining games. These are like these games, especially the Super Bowl, maybe not this week 7 Colts Browns game, whatever. Like that can't happen. And not to say that the call was right. The James Bradbury held, he said he held, like we all know it was right, but it's just like, come on. But I do agree with Jim Irsay where he says like, hey, we need to make it reviewable under 2 minutes, because under 2 minutes is already, those games are though the under 2 minutes ends up being long anyway, like just because of the getting out of bounds or the timeouts or like, the craziness, the chaos that goes when you're trying to go for a game winning drive. But, it was definitely a frustrating way to kind of end that game. But
For sure.
at the end of the day, can't turn the ball over 4 times and then complain about the refs. So tough way to end the game for Gardner Minshew. But like we said, can't turn the ball over 4 times and complain about the refs at the end. But with that being said, we did see a lot of close games, a lot of clutch finishes this past week. One of them goes to the team that, you guys have been hating on the quarterback. I've been kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt. Got the greatest coach of all time. The Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. Tough loss for the Bills. Nah. Don't do it. Don't do all that bullshit. Yeah. Y'all say he was an NFL quarterback and he
He's
came
not an
in.
NFL starting quarterback.
Yeah.
He did have a great game-winning drive, which was I'm pretty sure the first of his career, right? Or
I don't know about
first
that.
of the season. First of the season.
First season.
So he did have a great game-winning drive there, but what do you want me to say? Well, like, what do you want? You want me to just forget about the past 5 weeks, or
I'm not saying forget about
it.
it. I'm not saying forget about it at all.
These
And
I'm
not putting too much
around him.
Yeah, I'm not putting too much stock into it. I'm ultimately talking shit. But, I do still think, they need something. They need something offensively. The Patriots do. Mac Jones, you guys do say, we disagree here where y'all say that he's not an NFL quarterback, or, he can't do what you expect out of a franchise, where I'm like, yo, I'm looking at the guys that he's throwing to, and nobody's going to be out there doing nothing with Devontae. No disrespect to Devontae Parker, but he's, I really am not trying to disrespect the man, but like he's not at this point, he's not a number one. We've seen that.
Right.
We've seen that across 2 teams. Juju Smith-Schuster, no disrespect. And I'm not going to say he's not a number one. Obviously, he was just a number one for a Super Bowl winning team. So I'm not trying to disrespect these guys. But at the end of the day, like we see time and time again, if you want to have a good offense, you need game breakers at your receiver position or your tight end position, and or even the running back position. Which I'm not saying Ramondre Stevenson isn't, but he hasn't proven that fully yet.
Yeah.
So,
right.
but enough about the Patriots. What is y'all's feelings on the Buffalo Bills? And obviously they do have these games where they kind of lay an egg, and we saw that with the Giants game, they kind of started off slow and probably could have lost that one too. Ultimately to lose to the Patriots. So, what are you guys' feelings now after we've seen them at the highest of the highs, having one of the better wins of the season, and now probably at the lowest of the lows, having one of the worst losses of the season?
Man, they need to get right. It's like you said, like their losses be bad. It don't be no, oh man, it was a back and forth game. Josh Allen was on point, but the other team just overcame. No, they be having some bad games. Like it's just like you in one juncture you're playing, you beating up on Miami Dolphins, a team we all think is a good team. You beating up on them, and then you go and you just lay an egg, and it's just like, okay, like what's really
what do we
going
expect
on?
out of you?
Right.
Yeah.
It's the inconsistency. It's just like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to write them off, but it's like, nah, they gotta show me something. Like they gotta string some games for me to believe that they're gonna take care of business, or at least be at the end of the in the playoffs or whatnot. But it's not looking good to me.
With them, I mean, it's 2 games in a row where they got off to terrible starts,
Mm-hmm.
and they get this team. This how it's built this season. If they get off to a slow start, it's not going to be a good game. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen throws a pick on the first damn drive of the game, first play of the game, throw a pick,
First pass, basically.
first pass of the game. Like, dude, like that's how you going tonight. All right, so it was a dogfight from there. We saw it last week when they couldn't even get out the mud. You know what I'm saying? So it's like this
And
team
the
is not bad.
Patriots had relenting pressure on them. I think this was the most pressure that the Buffalo Bills allowed this season so far. So,
Yeah, they were getting after him for sure, and
yeah.
that's without Matthew Judon. But yeah, it's like the Bills. I still have them as one of the top teams in the AFC. I just think they just had to make a concerted effort to get out to cleaner starts, cut off the turnovers. Josh Allen was after that turnover, he was all right. You know what I mean? They still have not got their running game going how it needs to be, which I talked about before. Consistently, that's what I talked about before the season. Like that's what they needed to ride this season and not have Josh try to be Superman. And we've seen him try to do that in their 3 losses. Like he's trying to be Superman, honestly, in all 3 of them. So it's like, all right now.
And I would even say outside of just Josh Allen and the running game, they're just the team in general is just very Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen dependent. How many games do they really win when there's like, if Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs don't have a good game? How many games do they even win when, maybe Josh Allen has a good game, but Stephon Diggs doesn't, or his stat line is kind of low. Like it's, we'll get in. We keep saying we'll get into it, but we'll definitely get into the buyers and sellers at this trade deadline. And I think, hint, hint. I think they should be a buyer, a big time buyer for some receiving talent outside of Stephon Diggs. I would even say their best season. When they did go toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes in that divisional round, and the year before, when they went to the AFC Championship. That's when they had Emmanuel Sanders to alleviate a little bit, and some other receivers outside.
Have variety. They have Isaiah McKenzie. They have variety.
So it's starting to get a little too Stephon Diggs dependent. And with that being said, is that going to be an issue? Because we don't necessarily know what the issue was between Stephon Diggs and the Vikings that led to him coming to to the Buffalo Bills. But one can assume when Adam Thielen was the number 1 there, he's now that we're seeing, there's been some issues in terms of maybe his targets or how he's being used, or, whatever the issues were last year. Will that rear its head again if they do go get DeAndre Hopkins or a Devontae Adams or, some other receiver that can kind of alleviate that for him? Yeah. So that'll be something to be seen. But, Buffalo, they have to decide right now who they are. They have to decide, because they had an opportunity this past week to, if they would have got that dub, they're right back in first place with Miami taking that loss. Everything after, losing to Jacksonville and then having a slow start against the Giants, and then having that slow start against the Patriots and then coming back, that getting the win would have been like, okay, like we can calm down. Now it's like, we still got that loss. It's like, all right, now what's really going on? Because are we going to start losing traction between that first seed? Because I think Buffalo needs it big time. I think Buffalo needs it more than anybody. So it's put up or shut up time for them now.
Yeah,
right now, and it's early on in the season, but it's
not looking how it's supposed to look for this team.
It's not looking like how it's supposed to look, like you said.
Yeah.
But with that being said, another big game, and we talked a little bit about division lead, and that's exactly what this was for: the Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kind of a low scoring game, kind of a dogfight. Honestly, both teams played. The score wasn't necessarily yeah, definitely. The score wasn't indicative necessarily of how those teams played. I don't think they were just struggling on offense. They were both moving the ball pretty decently well, just having untimely turnovers. But Cass, speak the fuck up, nigga. How you feel about the
Nah, this was a huge win, man. At the end of the day. And honestly, like you said, the score is not indicative of how the game went. I honestly wasn't even worried. Like after how the first, couple quarters went, like even with the fumbles and stuff, I'm like, we're moving the ball so easily. Like we just need to punch this shit in. You know what I mean? The defense is playing really, really solid. I mean, they got a fumble, they got a very timely pick on Baker. I knew he would throw us one. And when they were just outside the red zone, looking to score that. But yeah, so like Desmond Ridder, of course, 3 fumbles in this game. The one in the goal line that's a touch that got hit out by Winfield Jr. went out in the end zone, touchback. First off, how do y'all feel about that rule? Because there's been a lot of discourse on that rule too, even in national media.
The rule's the rule, man. You gotta follow that motherfucker.
Like it's
I mean,
interesting.
What exactly is supposed to be the fix? What is supposed to be, if you fumble,
that's
any other part of the field. If you fumble at any other part of the field, you're not handing the ball over to if you fumble out of bounds on any other part of the field, you're not handing the ball over to the other team. I mean, I get it. It's happening in the end zone, but that's not a fumble recovery for them. Like,
but you gotta realize
that's my thoughts.
It's their end zone, so anything in there belongs to them. So yeah, if it go out of bounds, it should be there. Mm-hmm. That is their home.
I guess
that is their home.
That's probably not the NFL's definition of it.
That's my definition. It's their home. That's their shit.
I mean, but for real though, like, I mean, if you got if we're gonna complain about it, like, what's the fix? And
the fix is make it put them back at a 20. I don't know, like move the offense back. Don't get the ball to the other team. That's my fix for it. I don't know, but anyway,
it'll be something. And I have a question for y'all that I have. And this is kind of just making me kind of galaxy brain right now. How do y'all feel about? And this kind of actually goes to some of the Colts stuff with the pass interferences and stuff like that. How do y'all feel about offensive penalties versus defensive penalties? And before y'all answer, I want to preface by saying I kind of have an issue with the fact that damn near every single defensive penalty except for offsides is an automatic first down.
Oh,
the pass
interference
is a spot foul, automatic first down. Every offensive penalty is, you get to redo the down. Damn near, you might lose a couple lose some yardage, but you get to redo that down. Aside from intentional grounding.
That's the only one you lose it down for.
How do y'all feel about that? Because I think, in my opinion, especially something like defensive holding. It's a 5-yard penalty. Does that deserve to be an automatic
first down? Like, that's so crazy to me too. I mean, I completely agree with that though.
I get it. I think their reasoning is for you can't. I guess it's stupid, but I think their reasoning is for you can't determine like if they would have got the first down. Like for instance, like you just said, holding. Like what if you're holding the old line from getting up to the linebacker that's going to spring the running back loose. And so you held him, so now it's like, well, he could have got the first down, so he's just gonna. I think that's why it is, but no, defense definitely.
The stakes
their penalties
the
are
stakes
very
are a lot,
harsh.
yeah. And it's that just falls in line with just being an offensive game, offensive lead.
It is an offensive game, but God, like the defense gets the defense.
They get distorted in the stick of everything.
You can't hit here. You can't hit there. You can't.
That stuff definitely needs to be looked at. It's a lot of questionable hits. And it's a lot of niggas be getting rocked now, but it's a lot of questionable hits and stuff.
You move past the quarterback and you try to swipe over instead of hitting him. You graze his helmet. Now it's a roughing the passer. And I get it for the head injuries, but it's funny. It's just like.
That what happened at the Eagles game.
The Eagles
it wasn't against the Eagles, but basically Christian Wilkins literally. As soon as Jalen threw, he let up. He let up, but he pushed him. They like, well, it's a pass. And I'm like, that's not pass interference. Like, what are we talking about? He didn't hit him. He put his hands on him, but what are we talking about? Yeah,
it's tough. And then you see the little the news came out a couple of weeks ago that they're looking at getting rid of the little drop down when they grab them behind them, kind of drop them down. They looking at getting rid of. It's like, come on, what do you want them to do? What do you want them to do? How else are they going to bring these guys down?
I'm catching up to him. Like, what are we talking?
You gonna grab him and move your weight down? That's what you gonna do.
Exactly. So I wanted to kind of gauge y'all's thoughts on that because that's something I've been thinking for quite a few years. It's just like we need to change not everything should be automatic first down. Of course, pass interference, I totally get it. If they're hindering your top flight receiver from making some spectacular catch or just making a wide open catch anyway. In that I completely understand. Roughing the passer, I think there maybe should be some levels to it, like the little side swipes or like you accidentally inadvertently hit the quarterback's helmet. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe that goes, and maybe we should stick with that part for if we go with the reviewing under 2 minutes, because those are killer. And it seems like every game winning drive now, it seems to have
Something like that in it. Yeah,
type of personal foul, some type of personal penalty that gives you 15 yards or gets you completely down the field. I mean, they even say, I mean, it's obviously an offensive strategy now. Throw it, throw the ball. If you
throw it
if
short,
it's third down, throw it a little short.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's crazy to me.
That's crazy.
That's a little crazy to me. Like, come on now.
I don't. Do y'all remember where it used to be a time where you had two different face mask penalties? One of them used to be 5 yards. It used to be 15. Now it's like, nah, if you just graze it, 15. It's all 15. Bro, what?
Yeah.
And even then, you don't even have to necessarily grasp the face mask. If you touch it and you move you got it a little bit.
If they head move a little bit.
So
it's a little crazy. No, the defense is getting harder and harder on defense, which is why all of the vets are coming out and saying, or former players are coming out saying the shit is tough. It says soft, like it's hard to play defense in this league.
And a lot. So I don't to get into that a little bit. I don't want to get in it too much, but some of those guys you got, shut the hell up. Like,
no, sure.
you guys are literally headhunting. There's plenty of great players, great defensive players that have, they're not out here just getting hella, bad penalties and stuff like that. Like Fred Warner, we talked about him a little bit last week and how he's been dominant over the past couple games, especially with that Cowboys game.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't necessarily see, Fred Warner's just not out here getting unnecessary roughness penalties from tackling.
That's true.
He's making sound tackles. He's hitting people. Dre Greenlaw too. I mean, they're putting pads to people. Yeah. So, let's calm down.
Because you see like William Jackson, like he was suspended for games. He headhunting, and they bumped it down. They bumped it down to 2. But the Broncos been doing that shit this year. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? And then Ryan Clark. Shout out to him. He spoke on that, and it kind of makes sense. He was like, Kareem Jackson was one of the ones when they start integrating the change of how you hit people, and it's like Fred Warner came in after all that, so he's getting used to knowing, because college is very heavy on that, targeting and stuff. So he's used to it, and somebody like Kareem Jackson, if that's what he, built upon doing, it's like it's kind of hard for him to try to, fix himself. That's what he's used to doing. So I thought that was interesting.
The only thing about Kareem Jackson is that, like, bro, like you already got fined like 3 straight weeks. Relax. Relax.
Put it on your head. Like that's what facts. It's your fault at this point.
But with that being said, to get back to the Falcons, Falcons Bucks game, once again. Despite the mistakes, Desmond Ridder comes up clutch again. Ultimately, like he
4 game winning drives this season. 4 game winning drives.
It's both good and bad, because it's like, all right, like you're getting us in this position, like
exactly.
But
which is why game winning drives. I've always thought that about game winning drives. Like you put yourself in that position to kind of have to do this. But okay, it's a good stat to keep track of for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And the Tampa Bay, they're after starting off so hot, it's slowly gone down for them, and go ahead. Yeah, we'll have to start looking into for them. Are they going to be sellers as we get into that a little bit later? Are they going to start being sellers, because they do have coming off the championship and playoff appearances, they do have some aging veteran talent that they clearly can perform, but maybe they need to start looking at a rebuild.
I think they do need a shift there, kind of in the culture a little bit. It's tough to be complete sellers though, because you still the end of the day, you still have a shot to win this division, and you will have a shot to win this division throughout the year. This is how these three teams are with them, Falcons and the Saints. So it's tough to but they do have some vets that they can really get good pieces off of, especially on the defensive side. But if they want to go that route, but no, I mean, Tampa Bay, like Baker is kind of, he's not playing terribly. He's not playing terribly, but
Not at all.
at the end of the day, he's not looking like, what everybody was speaking of in the beginning of the season, like, oh, Baker Mania, all this stuff. Like, no, he's kind of reverted back to really who he was. He's still he's a solid quarterback. He's not
quarterback.
He's not terrible. He's not terrible at all. But at the end of the day, is he the quarterback that's going to lead you to where you need to go?
In the future. Yeah.
That's a question. It's still a question.
Remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Remains to be seen. But the final game that we can go ahead and cover today will be the Kansas City Chiefs versus the LA Chargers. One of the games that I said it on Sunday, it seems that those games go the exact same way every time. It's either they're back and forth, and then it kind of slows down, and then ultimately Kansas City ends up making a few more plays than the Chargers. But
that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
I know we talked a little bit about it last week, and that it's starting to it's probably time to start having those conversations about Justin Herbert. But what do y'all think? Like, it's we see it, we see it, and we see the talent, we see how great he is. And I don't want to get too much into it. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it last week, but what do you guys think that they're missing aside from coaching? We've expanded upon that so much. What do you guys think that they're missing with all the stars they got over there?
I think at this point it's really just the coaching. Like, I think they had an offensive talent over there. They really do. Justin Herbert makes these mistakes. He threw 2 picks in this game, bad ones that set them back. One of them, I think one of them was in the red zone, if I'm not mistaken. Or they were.
It's unfortunate. It was
but so it's like they're there. They had the talent. They had the talent really on both sides of the ball, just not putting it all together. And I think that has to just do. You just got to chalk that up to coaching. I don't see what else can change. I don't see if you can add in another corner. Yeah, you can add in. You don't need a runner receiver. You can add another runner. I don't know. It's really just coaching. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, you starting to see it throughout the league. Most of the teams that are successful have a head coach that is offensive minded. I just, maybe, like you said, it's almost like it is coaching. Maybe, because he got an offensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, Kellen Moore, this your offense, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, nah, somebody needs to step in and give him some direction. Cause it's just mistake after mistake after mistake after a good team that has talent. Like, even with Mike Williams is hurt, they have talent. They have talent all around them. And it's just like, y'all should be dominating. The fact that the defense that's been playing bad all year kept you in this game and you could not pull this out is like, okay, it's coaching or something. Their defense played on Sunday. They played as good as they have been played all year outside,
especially in the second half.
Right. I mean, you can even say, maybe the week before they played even better. But, defense is starting to play. Like, nah, I don't know.
Getting better and better.
I think it's coach. I think he need an offensive minded head coach.
Yeah, go ahead and sign Ben Johnson up from the Lions, or pencil him in as the Chargers' next head coach.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, Kansas City, another great win for them. They can kind of continue their dominance since their first loss in the first week. Patrick Mahomes looked great again. The first half, he looked great. When they were trying to stop him from passing, he started scrambling, and when they stopped him from scrambling, he started eating them up in the pass game. And he had a huge game passing, and he's up there number 1, number 2, top 5 in every statistical category for passing right now. But I still do have a little bit of question marks about the receivers, which remains obviously we'll see as we get along in the season.
Yeah. He's spreading it out. He's definitely
spreading it out.
And that's one thing we don't know will be sustainable, especially against better defenses. That's something still to be determined. But he is
as long as they got Kelsey.
Yeah, 10, 11 receivers caught a pass in this one. Like, he's spreading it out. He's got a target. So I mean,
My boy Mecole
Kelsey,
Hardman came in, made some
yeah,
plays, came right back to it.
Hell of a punt
huge
return.
punt
Yeah,
return, huge.
that was probably the turning point of the
That
game,
was it.
honestly.
That was the dagger, honestly, because they
Yeah.
got him down there, and it's like they just played their ball to keep the ball away from the other team at that point.
And I mean, and that also could be, that's a part of coaching. Like that's a part of coaching, and a part of the difference between a bad or a good and a great team is like, hey, every phase of the Kansas City Chiefs have made some type of impact, especially in that win. The defense, obviously, we mentioned the 2 picks. Obviously, we talked about Patrick Mahomes dominating, and then we see Mecole Hardman on special teams, ultimately making, and sorry to bring up bad memories again, but we saw that in the Super Bowl as well with Kadarius Toney.
Right.
That was ultimately the turning point of the game with that, with that. And so you might be right. It might just purely be coaching for the Chargers. So unfortunately, we can't talk too much about it because Brandon Staley, we've exhausted time talking about him every week, just as everybody else has done in the national media. But that kind of wraps us up for this past week in terms of the biggest games of the week. All the rest of the games were, ain't too much else to talk about.
Definitely not that Broncos Packers game.
We could
Steelers Rams.
Steelers Rams was a good one.
But
and obviously that was another one that had the controversial ending with Kenny Pickett obviously clearly not gaining the line of yards to gain.
Puka
that's
Nacua,
something
man,
else.
154 yards, dude. This guy
continues to dominate.
Ridiculous.
Continues to dominate. I actually saw something that his catch or his target shares have gone up since Cooper Kupp has come back. We thought it was something that he was gonna, kind of go down a little bit, but it's actually gone up, and it's basically been the Puka Cooper Kupp show for the Rams.
Getting rid of Van Jefferson, open up. They just said we're gonna ride you too, and they doing it.
Pause.
He had a monster. Yeah, that shit was kind of crazy.
That was crazy.
He had a monster catch on the sidelines though.
Yeah,
he's nice. Puka Nacua is nice.
And then another one, we can talk a little bit about it, but the Monday night game. Obviously, probably the upset of the week. Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings staying alive, and they don't have too many tough teams coming up either.
They got a favorable schedule going forward after this game. Yeah, they're 3-4. Winnable games, honestly. They have to play, the Lions, but I think they got to play them twice. But other than that, winnable games like
Packers, the Falcons, Saints, Broncos, Bears. That's the next couple games that they've got. Aside from that, they've got the Bengals and the Lions twice. The only thing about the Viking season is that the Lions, their 2 games come 2 of the last 3 games of the season. So that'll be something to watch. But San Fran, another loss. Brock Purdy. Now it's looking like Sam Darnold time because Brock Purdy's hurt and he got a concussion. He's in the concussion protocol, and only 2 players this year have even been entered in the concussion protocol and then played that same week. So things aren't looking too good for Brock Purdy. But good thing for him is after a bad season. Well, one of the things we could say is maybe that's what led to that last egregious interception that he had on the game-winning drive for them.
He
might have been a little, his egg might have been scrambled a little bit, but
had double vision.
Now, Chris and I talked about this too. It's like you can see the impact like not having Debo has had on that offense, has had on Brandon Ayuk. Like
they don't have anybody else out there aside from Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey.
They tried to use Ray McCloud a lot in this game, and it just wasn't working. Like you need Debo, you need that dog out there. Which
Jordan Addison breakout game, and obviously Puka is clear cut. Best rookie receiver thus far. Zay Flowers, my boy Josh Downs, obviously, as I mentioned. Jordan Addison has been making more and more plays. And that's actually something, it feels like Jordan Addison hasn't been talked about too much. Jordan Addison was the best receiver in college football, then transferred over to a USC where, he makes an immediate impact with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. And it's just like, we just don't talk about him enough. So it's something to continue to watch. To whoever, if Minnesota ends up trading Kirk Cousins, I know it's been floated a little bit about him getting traded to the 49ers after, we've seen Brock kind of have some 2 tough games. Whoever's walking into the situation, they just need a running back, and they're Jordan Addison, Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson locked in. It could get scary in Minnesota in a couple
they
years.
got weapons.
It's kind of interesting you said about the rookie of the year for offense, because it's like, Puka benefited from Cooper Kupp being hurt. And now Addison's benefiting from Justin Jefferson being hurt. Now it's like, what if the role reversed and Jefferson was hurt at the beginning of the year and Cooper Kupp wasn't? And it's like, Addison a dog. Yeah. He's showing up.
He's definitely a dog, especially after how the game started off. He got the ball ripped out of his hand.
It was kind of like, Kirk did throw a bad ball, but it was almost
Kirk
like
got the craziest interceptions this year. That's literally the 3rd time they got ripped, like a ball got ripped out of his receiver's hands this season.
And he really should have had another one where it got ripped out of his receiver's hands. But Jordan Addison made a great play. But that, like I said, that kind of gives us a wrap for the weekly updates from week 7.